Welcome to Ask Alexis and Brook, the show where no topic is off limits and no piece of unsolicited advice goes unspoken. I'm Alexis.
And I'm Brooke, your lovely co hosts.
So, we are here to help tackle all the messes that life throws at you with no sugarcoating and not too much judgment. Just, real talk. So, you can just think of us as your own personal advice hotline.
We listen and we kind of sort of don't judge.
We listen and we try not to judge, but sometimes we do. And then afterwards, we still give you good advice, right? Okay.
Deal.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's get into the tea. So we do love hearing from you. We love to get your questions, right? So we have a few ways that you can send us your requests for advice. You can email us, which you can email us, DM us, or we even have a little subreddit, which we will link all of that in the description box so that you can find all of the ways to contact us. And we will keep you completely anonymous unless you're feeling brave and you want to come on the show and ask us your questions, which would be so fun. Right?
Oh, yeah. Or a voice note, too. I think a
Yes,
voice
we
note would
love
be fun.
voice notes, which you can send us your voice notes via email or DM or whatever. And we could even distort your voice if necessary.
Oh, good idea.
I mean, I feel like that wouldn't be necessary, but whatever.
Yeah.
So here we go. The first one, oh, I love this one. Okay, it's a relationship question. Hey, Alexis and Brooke. All right, I need your honest opinion here. My boyfriend never posts me on social media, but he posts everything else: his dog, his food, even his freaking shoes. He says he's just private, but it's starting to make me feel some type of way. Am I being extra, or is this something I should be worried about? For context, we've been together for almost 10 months. Ooh, I'm glad they put that part in there. Okay, I've got to hear what you think about this.
Oh, it is awkward, but with guys and their social media, I don't think they see it the same way as girls do. Like women, we want to get positive feedback. And when a girl posts her man, it's like saying, "Oh, I'm off the market. I'm taken."
Right.
But for men, it's like they get positive feedback from posting their shoes. So it's like that does it for them. But the funny thing is when a guy posts his girlfriend, he gets way more likes than when a girl posts her boyfriend.
Absolutely.
That's just how it is. But personally, if somebody is all over social media, but they don't ever post me, that is a problem to me. And it's more so like my feelings would be hurt because, well, you want everyone to know about your whole darn life, but you don't want them to know about me. So it's almost like he doesn't want to take himself off the market because that's what it does. That's the signal that it sends is that I'm off the market now. I don't want to flirt with other girls. And I don't necessarily think it's because he doesn't want to be seen with her. I just think he isn't ready to take that step yet. And after 10 months, to me, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
But also it's just, I don't know. It's just not as important for some people. So I could see it going both ways. But if it bothers her, then that's what it is. It bothers her. So
Exactly.
he should,
And that's exactly what I was going to say. So I totally agree with you in the fact that a lot of times they just don't care as much. And it doesn't matter to them if they're public about their relationship or not. However, if it matters to you and you have expressed that it matters to you and they are clearly somebody who's on social media, it's not like you're asking him, create an Instagram account to then post me on. But if you're on social media utilizing it and it matters to your person whether they've posted you or not. I'm not saying you have to post every day, but that effort should be there because if the person really cares about you, they're going to meet you in the middle. And that's going to mean making a post, once in a while that shows that, yes, we're together, we're still here, because you're also very right. It does publicly take you off the market. And to me, if someone is like, I'm not posting you, it's because there's somebody else who thinks that they should also be the one being posted. And that's another cautionary tale I tell people. There's all these people oh, I'm not going to launch until I'm married. Da, da, da. I'm like, launch when you're married and there's going to be dirty laundry that's coming out. Launch something. I'm not saying you got to launch everything, but I want to see that the public photos long before we're walking down the aisle. Because I think that if you're so adamant about not doing it, or they're so adamant about you not doing it, there's a reason for that.
A good point on like there being someone else. And I don't necessarily believe that it would be like they are chatting to someone else or they like have another relationship or whatever,
Mhm.
but more so like there is someone who follows them and who watches their stories who they don't want to think that they have a girlfriend.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
they are leaving it out so that person doesn't think that, or that those people don't think that they're off the market. And so,
They're keeping their options open. And like Drake said,
yes.
I'm more than just an option. Okay.
Exactly. And I think my advice for this person is you cannot approach this as like a hard, tough girl. Like you have to like be in your feminine for this
Yep.
one. Because if
Hmm.
you go to him and be like, why don't you ever post me? Like that
That's
is
not gonna
not
work.
going to be well received. Like it really
Hmm.
has to be at a moment like when you're not mad about anything,
Yes.
when you don't have any like other like animosity or anything, and you would just
Hmm.
have to like softly bring it up. You're like, you know, it would really mean a lot to me if you
Hmm.
posted me on your social media.
Yep.
It would mean it would mean the world to me. Or you could even use it for like a birthday present or like a Christmas present or something like that. Like bring that
Hmm.
one around. Like, what do you want for your birthday? And like, well, you know, like the only thing that I would really, really like is like if you just like post me on your social media just like once, like it would just mean so much to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like be a sweet, soft girl.
Yes, be sweet, be soft, but also be direct and honest. Like, oh, it would mean a lot to me, and you can even play it up, play it down a little bit. Like, I do understand that it seems silly to you, or that you don't understand why I feel this way about it, but it is important to me, and I would appreciate you respecting my feelings on this. And if they don't, if they do any type of like running around the block to make you feel wrong for requesting this, that's a major red flag. So, like Brooke said, don't come at it as a fight. Let's be soft. Let's be open and vulnerable. We have to be vulnerable, people. Like, that's the only way that we're going to be able to form real relationships, and then let it play out. And if he doesn't make a change, well, I mean, the writing's kind of on the wall.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about the being vulnerable. So I would say you really do have to tell this person how it makes you feel and the signal that you feel like it's sending. Because,
Hmm.
you know, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe he hasn't realized like how much it affects you and how much it
Exactly. If
means
you
to
haven't
you.
had like a real conversation about it. Because
Yes, if you're
sometimes
not.
we're just like, oh, we just took this great picture at this wedding. We're dressed up. He's surely going to post it. And then he doesn't. And you're like, wait, what? And he's not, a lot of times they're just not thinking about it. It doesn't always have to be malicious intent. But if you haven't spoken up, then you can't even be mad yet.
Yeah, true. But yeah, overall, I think it comes down to like him caring about your feelings. So
Hmm. And if you're
you'll
open about
find
it,
you'll find out if he cares soon enough.
yep. And, write back and let us know how it went.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you want me to read the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, here we are. Okay, so this is a little friend drama from the
Ooh.
email box. Hold on, let me do this. Okay. Hi, Alexis and Brooke. I'm in a bit of a dilemma. My best friend recently started dating my ex from college.
Mm.
She said it's no big deal since we broke up over 5 years ago, but honestly, it's rubbing me the wrong way. I can't decide if I'm overreacting or if I'm just a little upset, and that feels like a boundary was crossed. What do you think? Should I let it slide or address it?
Oh, I mean,
Ooh.
my initial like gut reaction is like immediately no, friendship over, case closed, right? Um, because I think that that's really bizarre. I wish we had more context and like, did the friend approach you first? Like, oh, we connected at an event and like we kind of vibed and want to go out, and like, how do you feel? Like, I would love to know if there was any of that. I feel like there wasn't, just based on then the friend downplaying. It's like, it's no big deal. You broke up 5 years ago. That doesn't mean that it's free, fair play on this person now. Um, like you still, I think a conversation should have been had. And since it clearly wasn't, my advice then would be you need to think hard and long about like how you feel about this, how it was approached, all the details, and then yeah, you at least need to have a conversation about it and see like really where she's coming from. And I mean, if they just like think they're in the love of each other's lives and like whatever, then maybe you can decide that you're okay with it and want to continue the friendship. But I also do not think you would be wrong to decide that that's not necessarily a friendship you want to continue to pursue. But what do you think?
Yeah, the context really does matter. And To me, if they all are in the same friend group, like, because a lot of people just like are friends with the same people they were friends with in high school and
Yeah.
they just move along through life. Like, I have like an auntie who like literally still hangs out with the same people she went to high school with, which
Yeah.
is like, I mean, that's fine or whatever. But
Hmm.
to think that like later in life, like 5 years later, if you all see each other all the time, that like you wouldn't like strike up a romance with someone, that to me is like, well, we were all homie hopping back then anyway. You know what? It's like, it's that
The
to me, it's
homie
like,
hopping days. Oh God.
yeah, to me, it's like, it's almost excusable if you do run in the same circles. And
Okay.
it's like,
Okay.
you know what, like, or maybe the
Hmm.
girl who this is about, like, she moved away, but
Yeah.
everyone else kind of stayed in the same friends group. They're still
Yeah.
all from Oklahoma or whatever,
Well, I
and they
was
just
gonna
like,
say it matters what city you live in too, because if it's small
that
town
does
vibes, there's not a lot to go around.
that part. Yeah, no, that's my point exactly. It's like whether it's still hanging out with people in high school or small town vibes or whatever. It's like, well, there are not a lot of options, but also it's like everyone's kind of trading partners anyway. It's like it's almost
Mhm.
a little more excusable, but it also depends on how they broke up. Like
Yeah.
if he like broke her heart and like left her like down and out or like cheated on her, like did something
Hmm.
terrible, then I just feel like there is something to be said there. But
Hmm.
also it's like how close of friends are you?
Yeah, I mean,
Because
it's best.
so like if it's somebody who like you went back home and like you don't even call them and you don't even see them, then like
Mhm.
do you guys
No
really
harm, no
are
foul.
you even that close of friends? Like
Hmm.
this actually happened to me one time with the med student that I dated. So
Oh.
I am from San Diego and
Mhm.
I was like best friends with this girl in third grade. Okay. And so like after third grade, we like kind of fell off. Like maybe like in fifth grade, we went to each other's birthday parties or whatever. But pretty much
Mhm.
after that, like we like weren't really close friends. Like we didn't really like have contact or whatever. But she dated this guy in high school. And then I moved to Las Vegas and I ended up connecting with him on Bumble in high
Okay.
school or in like he was in med school so
Yeah.
I was long out of college so we're like like we're 28, 27 years old at this
Mhm.
point but like I wasn't like really friends with her still like I don't like have her phone number like it wasn't a
Yeah.
thing and it
Mhm.
would to me it would be weirder to and I didn't even know they dated until like
Yeah.
he finally brought it up to me I was like oh my god I know her you know what I mean like we were like best
Mhm.
friends in third grade
Mhm.
so to me it would be weirder to like go and find her on Facebook and be like hey just so you know, like me and so are dating now. Like
Oh,
that's
well, that would be
absolutely
utterly
asinine.
bizarre. Yeah.
That would be asinine to me. Like I just had thought she had like no business thinking of, and like I don't know how they ended because like we're really not friends. We haven't been friends since
Yeah.
the third grade.
Yes.
So like that situation, it's like it just depends. I think there's nuances to it.
Mhm.
But
Well,
if
okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you guys are close friends and she is dating your ex, that's not your friend. Like it's just like there is no reason for you to do that, and like it's just to me that's girl code. Like you just wouldn't do it. So that's just
Girl
my
code. Yes. And I
yeah
think, okay, so I'll tell you my little, I have a tale of it too. Might as well. Like, we can get personal on this show.
yeah.
So when I was in like high school, the end of high school, I had this boyfriend, whatever. Went off to college and I like left the state for college and he was still back home, whatever. And when I got to college a few weeks in, I promptly got a new boyfriend, but like kept both boyfriends for a little bit. Okay. Like I'm not proud, but I like didn't really know like what to do, right? Like
The
I
truth
needed a
comes
college
out.
boyfriend. He had a car, he had an apartment, and then, there was the home back home boyfriend. I don't know. I was young. What was I doing? Like I was 17 when I went to college. Come on. Okay. But my best friend knew this, right? Best friend, like a best high school friend. And really, she was like, I was new to the school, so she kind of just latched on to me as people do. And then I was like, okay, yeah, sure, we can be friends. And then that was what it was. I don't even really know how it all like went down per se, but like eventually he found out, the home boyfriend found out that I had another boyfriend. So like that was a whole thing. And I was like, okay, well, he's like, you have to choose. And I'm like, well, I choose college boyfriend. Like I don't choose you. So whatever, break up. And then eventually he like starts calling me again, like wants to talk, whatever. And I was like, yeah, we can talk, like whatever. And he's like, well, I just want you to know I have a new girlfriend now, whatever. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like who, like someone I know, or like why? I don't care. And then he's like, yeah. So then I'm like, okay, we do not run in the same circle. So we do not know like a lot of the same people besides like our closer friends. So then I said the girl's name. I was like, is it so and so? Had no idea how I knew this. And her and I were still close friends at this point. He's like, yep. And she's the one who told me about, that you had another boyfriend. And I was like, what? And so I called her. I was like, really, girl? Like, you wanted my sloppy seconds that bad? Like, you want to be me that bad? And so she was like, well, you didn't want him. And I was like, okay, girl. So obviously, I mean, I wasn't friends with her anymore because I was like, that's insane. Like, number one, you're the one who outed me, which, I mean, I was doing wrong, but still, it's not your best friend's job to out you in that way. And then, like, went and dated him, and they, like, dated for a long time, too. And he, the whole time, was always trying to get back with me. So I'm like, really? The point is, no. The context matters. In your case, yes, that would have been bizarre to go and do any of that. In my case, let's just say she hadn't been the one to like do all of that and like she just decided that they were just like really falling for each other. Then she should have said like, "Hey, I would like to go on a date with so and so, and like we both talked about it, but we wanted to let you know first." Because it's still not to say that someone has to like grant you permission. Like you're an adult, and if you guys are in love or not in love, interested in each other romantically, and you want to do it, but everybody involved should be clear. This might end the friendship. The date might not be worth it because it likely isn't going to be the end all be all. And then you have to live like everybody has to live with how they proceeded, right? And so I think the context matters. And I mean, think about all the other parts of your friendship. Like, is this really a good friend or not? And then you can kind of make your decision from there.
I think if they're willing to risk their whole friendship for this man, then like that's not really a friend you want in your life anyway. So it kind of like reminds me of Love Island or like, you know, some of those like reality shows where it's like, well, you should have told me or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, it is kind of like that. Like, even if you had like the slightest amount of like interest in him, before you pursue anything, if you want to preserve the friendship with that girl, you have to ask her how she feels about that. Because if, as long as you do that and you're respectful about it, then it changes the scenario. Like if that girl is like, oh, you know, you can have him, girl, like it's not a big deal or whatever, because it really isn't so unreasonable to think that like two people who are close friends like would be interested in the same guy. It's like, well, like I feel like a lot of my friends, like we don't like the same type of guy. Like,
Same. I mean, and that's why we've been friends forever.
yeah,
But
yeah, right.
but what you're saying totally stands to reason. And even if the person is like, no, I wouldn't be comfortable with that. I don't like the idea of that. You still do have the right to move forward, but like now everybody knows like what's good and where we stand, you know?
But just know that they would have to know that they're risking the friendship with you to pursue that if you weren't comfortable with it.
Yep.
And if they're okay with that, then they were never your darn friend to begin with.
Exactly.
And given the chance, they probably would screw you over. So like, just take it as a sign from the Lord.
There you go, girl. All right. We are just killing it. Okay. Ooh, this one's about work. And I actually really want to hear what you have to say about this. And for those like of you who don't know, because we didn't really do a huge intro on this one, but like Brooke and I used to be colleagues. So I think this is like going to be a good one. All right. The person says, so I need some advice on a work issue. There's this male coworker of mine who's been stealing my ideas in meetings and acting like he came up with them. It's honestly starting to feel like I'm invisible. I don't want to make a scene and be dubbed a hysterical woman, but I also don't want to let this slide. How do I handle it without making things awkward?
This calls for documentation.
Okay.
Like if you are just speaking aloud your ideas, it's almost like, especially when it comes to like guys, and I hate to like put, you know, some kind of like frame around men, but it's like they might not remember you said that. And then they think they truly do think they had that idea, because that's just kind of like how the male brain works, I think. So honestly, I mean, if it happens more than once, then like that's one thing, but like you almost can give him the benefit of the doubt. But the advice moving forward, I think, would be to find another colleague, someone else who works there, a boss or something like that. And anytime you have any idea at all, or you take meeting notes or minutes or whatever, you list out, this is my idea. And then send that email. And then when it comes down to it, if this guy is going to steal your ideas again, you can go back to that email and be like, hey, actually, like this was my idea. See the email chain from this time. Because you just have to have like documentation when something like that is happening. Because you do have to, especially if it's like there's a lot of ideas going on, like there's a lot, whatever. But that has literally happened to me, where I like say an idea in a meeting. and then nobody like says anything or like nobody was listening or whatever.
Yeah.
And then a man says the same exact idea. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
I literally just said that, but like, whatever. And I just like, whatever. But yeah, at a
Yeah.
certain point, it is like he is taking credit for her ideas. So yeah, girl,
Mhm.
just like get that documentation.
Yeah, I mean, I think documentation's great. Over communicating, right? Like you have to, it's like the thing where like when you're working remotely, it's like constantly updating your people so then they never are wondering like what are you doing, even
Hmm.
if what you're doing is almost nothing.
Yeah.
But if you always are communicating like, oh, I'm working on this today, working on this, oh, just finished this, then like they think like, wow, they're really killing it. And then I think that depending on your work environment and the politics involved at work, you may not be able to do that, or you might feel weird doing it or whatever, or some people honestly do need to be put in their place. So no, not like, hey, that was my idea, you're stealing my ideas. Like, no, we're not going to do anything like that. But as simple as, let's say, right, because of course we don't have all the context here, but let's say like you and the person, the guy, were having like a little off, casual meet, and you were like, oh yeah, like I had this idea about that upcoming blah blah blah, and I'm going to bring it up in the meeting today or whatever. And let's just say for whatever reason he decides he's going to like bring it up before you with no mention. Then I would immediately chime in and be like, oh yeah, from that conversation that we were having earlier when I brought up XYZ, and then you continue on, be like, thank you so much for bringing that up. I didn't know if we were going to have time to bring it up in this meeting. Like you can act like you're, kind of kindly letting him like toss it to you. And if he's smart, he'll graciously be like, oh yeah, cool. And then you can continue with like the further detail or whatever research you may have behind you. And then just start keeping in mind that like people at work are not for you. They're for themselves. So even if you do want to spitball an idea, keep the details and the higher level stuff to yourself. So then that way you'll have the opportunity to build upon it even if somebody does bring it up. And once you do that once or twice in a meeting, other people are going to notice like, wait a second, I feel like she said that last time where she was like, oh, thanks David for bringing that up. I forgot that we didn't have that on the agenda today. I didn't think we would have time. Like you can try to play it down. And then if it really gets crazy, I mean, there are other tactics we can pursue, but try this and then write back to us if you need to like get brattier about it, because Brooke and I know a thing or two about it, but we're not gonna like encourage you to start there.
Well, also it's just like you figured out who you can trust,
Hmm.
at this company. And like if he's not someone you can trust, then like don't bring up ideas around him. Or
Exactly.
if you do have an idea, make sure someone else is listening and someone else is there so it's
Exactly.
clear whose darn idea it was. But
Hmm.
I mean, I think too, like as long as you're like having a good relationship with that man, you
Hmm.
can like play to his like urge to like fix scenarios or like
Hmm.
be the fixer or whatever,
Hmm.
and just be like, like I have this problem and like I'm kind of scared to bring it up to you, but like I don't know
Hmm.
if you can help me like solve this problem. And he'll be like, oh sure, I'm great at solving problems. And he'd be like, well yeah, actually like the problem is that like I feel like you stole my idea. And
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Like, also, you can pull somebody aside and be like, listen.
yeah, but like in just the sweetest, most like gentlest way you possibly can, because
Hmm.
like obviously if this man is stealing your ideas, like he has an ego that needs to be
Stroked.
reeled in and
Yeah.
stroked, yes. But it's like you if you bring it up, because he truly might have forgotten. Like if it happens more than once, like I don't know, but like I mean these they
Yeah, I
they
mean, I
may have.
feel like they're writing in because it's happening more than once. So I think
Right.
yes, try once to be like a little sweet and demure about it. Um, but if it keeps happening and you're in the workplace, I just think that we're still in a time where like men just do not like a lot of men just do not respect women, or are like shocked that like this woman is at the same level as you or higher level or whatever. And they are sometimes intentionally undercutting you and whatnot. And once they see that, like, no, you're not a scared little girl who like can be trifled with, they will back down and go find somebody else to pick on. So you want to like not be hysterical and not do it in a way that's like going to be like an HR thing, but just like putting your foot down a couple of times, whether that's, and that's why I said like do it publicly, because next thing you know, like, oh, like you stole my idea and now I feel stupid with the boss. And then he's like, it's either that you confronted him and, oh, like they confronted me and said I stole their idea like that. Or it's like, oh, she's such a crybaby. She's so sensitive. Either way it goes, they've told now this story that like changes like your whole like what really happened either way. And so I think the public addressing of it in a nice way the first time or two to like really let them know you're not to be pushed around. And then after that, well, you might have to amp it up.
As you were talking, it gave me like another idea, which is
Okay.
like you kind of like play him a little bit. So you would
Ooh.
say, like, I realize that, like, people don't take me as seriously in meetings as they take you. Like, I think people just like really like you and really respect you, and you're like such a cool, handsome guy. So I'm just wondering, like, I have some ideas that like I want to bring up. Like, I'm wondering, like, if you could bring them up and like give me credit for them, but like maybe like you could be the one to bring it up just because I think people will listen to you more. Like, I still want people to know it's my idea, but I would just really love if you could bring this up. And then like he gets the credit too, but
Yeah.
he gets to bring it up, which is like what he wants to do is like whatever, like he wants to be the center of the moment for the moment.
Hmm. Well, and
But
you know, I
then
like that idea, like of that. And then I think there's another way to do it where because we don't know this woman, right? She may not be the type of woman who's willing to even say any of that, right? Because I'm
yeah,
thinking about some people that I've worked with in the past, and I'll butter
true.
biscuits with the best of them, but I'm not going to be like, people respect you more than me. I'm not going to say that. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
But
yeah,
I could
yeah.
butter their biscuits, right? So I could be like, hey, you know what? Um, I love the way that you articulate the ideas in meetings. Okay.
Hmm.
So here's an idea I have. Let's flesh it out together and then let's present it together in the meeting. Like you can start it off and then I'll just come through with the boring details. And then it's kind of like now you've made this person your teammate, your partner in the presenting it while still letting them know that you've peeped that they're going to tell your idea regardless. And it's giving them the opportunity to invite you into the conversation before you have to, dress them down publicly. So maybe that'll work. It's like a mixture of both, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't have to downplay yourself, but you can go feed into his little like ego. You know he's going to steal your idea anyways, girl. So be like, "All right, let's work it out together." And then he'll have to introduce it in the way of like, "Oh, Brooke and I were working on X, Y, and Z. Blah, we were thinking." Da, da, da. And then Brooke comes through with like the expert part of it that you didn't tell him about. Or
Oh,
if
that's
you
good.
really want to be an ass, just tell him a terrible idea and let him put it up in the meeting and he'll feel stupid and he will never do it again.
Oh my gosh, that's actually a good one. You could like give him a terrible idea that it won't work, and you have a rebuttal for like why it won't work, and like
Oh, yes.
and then when he brings it up, be like, that's actually not a good idea because of this and that, and he's like, what?
But you,
Like,
and then he'll be like, but you told me. Because then he's not
right,
going to want to admit that like
exactly.
it was a stolen idea. So he's screwed all the way around.
That's
Ooh, I
funny.
think we really solved that one.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think just my last note on
Yes,
this
yes, yes.
is like part of working in a corporate environment is like proving you can work on a team, that you can
Mhm.
collaborate, and that you can defer to authority.
Mhm.
So I think as long as you're doing all of those things, then you're going to set yourself apart and above from the rest. Because like, you can't like go to HR and be like, he's stealing my ideas. It's like, no, you have to figure out a way to work with these people and collaborate
Yes.
with these people because those are your colleagues and he might be your boss one day or he might be reporting to you one day. So
Mhm.
it's like you
Mhm.
have to keep people, in your good graces, whether or not you want to. And I learned that
Exactly.
much later than I should have.
Well, but you learned it.
Yeah. You live
Okay.
and you learn.
You live, you learn. Okay. All right. And now we'll end the show with one last little thing. It's, our segment of, because first we started off with advice that people did ask us for. But we like to give advice that nobody asked for. It's like nobody asked us, but okay, so for this one, we're gonna go to TikTok with it first. We've always got a TikTok. So let me share it and hopefully I will do it smoothly.
Oh,
Hold
yes.
on
You
one
sent
second.
this one to me, and we were discussing the advice that absolutely nobody asked for.
Hmm.
So here she is. What's her username?
Her
Oh,
username,
Nikki something. Go down a little bit.
it is, hold on, it's not letting me do it.
Oh, there we go.
Nikki Nix. You see it?
Nikki Nix. Yeah.
Nikki Nix. She comes on here. She tells us about her hinge date from HE double hockey sticks. And remind us like what happened. Do you remember? I feel like you tell
She
it so good, like this particular one.
she goes on a date from Hinge and she has him pick her up and they have an hour car ride to the date and they go for dinner at like a bar and then karaoke. It's like a very long extended date, which
Yes.
seems crazy to me in the first place. But then it's like kind of not working out. And then they have to go on a really long car ride home, like an hour car ride. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, where do they live? Like somewhere in the middle of nowhere. They live in New York City. Like she's in Queens. So it just seems crazy to me that they drove for that
On
long.
highways and byways.
Yeah. And I mean,
Or was it just traffic?
either way, like you
Okay.
live in the most densely populated metro in the
Well, sure,
United
you should
States.
have picked places that were like quick to get to. For
Like,
sure, for sure.
can you not pick a different place? But also the two-part date for someone who has never met that person
Mm-hmm.
before. I guess that's my first piece of advice is and this one isn't even a two-part date. To me, it's a four-part date because you got the drive there, which is an hour. That could be a
Yeah.
whole date. You got the dinner, which is another hour. You got the karaoke, which I think they go for 2 hours, and
Yeah.
then the drive home. So it's literally like a four-part date. And to me, that is crazy because like when you first meet someone, you don't know if it's going to work out or not. So you
Yeah.
don't want to have like this laundry list of plans and then be like, oh, well, we literally have four more parts to the date and I don't want to be on this date anymore. I think you
Mhm.
need to set the expectations that this is going to be a quick date. And then, of
Yeah.
course, if you guys end up liking each other, then you can make the suggestion, oh, like, let's go to
Yeah. Yeah. I
karaoke,
don't
let's
think,
go, whatever.
absolutely, don't pre-plan a freaking long date because you just simply don't know how it's going to go. And I think like that's good. Like in LA, the LA guys really had it. When I lived in LA, they would do this thing, and I feel like it was such a thing. Every guy I went out with, I swear, did it. They would be like, oh, let's meet for, and it would be like coffee or like something quick. And every single time they'd be like, oh, do you want to go get dinner? Oh, do you want to go get lunch or like extend it in some way? So I'm like, they planned to do this all the time. They just wanted to like see if I was insane or a catfish or whatever, or if they like didn't want to hang with me. And of course, I mean, why wouldn't they want to? And then we would always like carry on. But it was also great because in the times where I didn't want to carry on, I could say, oh, I thought we were just doing coffee. Like I have an appointment. I have something to do. Um, Anyways, so yeah, I think so. I feel like there's a lot of pieces of this date to dissect, right? So we dissected already. Don't be pre-planning a long date, okay? What do you think? Because a big thing that I saw in the comments on this one, and I know that we talked about a little bit, was the fact that she allowed him to pick her up for the first date when they met, on Hinge. So like technically they're like strangers. What do you think about that?
I am fine with someone picking me up. Like, I think there is like a chivalrous aspect to it. And especially like, because this is your advice, is like always FaceTime someone before. So,
Hmm.
like, if I've already FaceTimed someone, we've chatted for a little while, like, I caught the vibe, like, I think they're fine. Like, sometimes I like want to see what kind of car they drive, like, because
That's
what kind of
fair.
person are you?
Hmm.
And so, I mean, I think that's fine. But an hour drive,
Hmm.
like you're anticipating an hour drive, like it could be longer than that with traffic. Like that is insane. I would say if it's like 15, 20 minutes at the most, then
Hmm.
like if if you trust them, if you tell someone where you're going, whatever, like I think that's fine to have someone pick you up.
Hmm.
But just know, like that's a move. Like guys do that because they want to be the one to drop you off at home because
Yep.
they want to get that invitation inside.
Yep.
So they might say, and like I don't recommend inviting anyone inside on a first date or
No.
whatever, but like they might trick their way into your house or they might be like, oh, can I use your bathroom or something like that? Because like they just want to
Uh-huh.
get inside.
Uh-huh.
So, and in more ways than one.
Yes.
So, like, just beware of that. But I think the hour, and then the hour drive back, like, you had to have anticipated that, like, it could go bad. And then I'm literally in this car ride for an hour, which is, I think, what
Hmm.
happens to her and why she calls it the Tinder date from HE double hockey sticks, as you said. Because I think that last hour was just like, completely terrible. And I mean, in
One
that
hour
case,
too
I would
much.
have like put on a podcast, like an audiobook or something like, oh my God, I want to listen to this podcast with you. And then you don't have to
Yeah.
talk.
or like pretend you fell asleep or something. But keep your eyes open in case they like take you somewhere. Yes. And
Yeah.
and one last thing about like if you were letting somebody pick you up on the first date who you don't know, as you're approaching the car, quickly take a picture of their license plate and then just send it, to your friend and turn your location on. Because and I always did think when I was dating, I thought the offer was nice. Like even if I mostly didn't accept it, and there was occasionally you would like really catch a vibe with somebody like, oh, okay, cool. Or like you realized you knew people in common, like we're in Vegas, everybody like knows each other somehow. Or if it was just somewhere you simply did not want to be dealing with parking, or if it was like a big event or something like that, then sure.
Right.
But most of the time I'd be like, yeah, I'll just drive myself so that I can like, be a little bit freer. But also make sure your Uber, your Lyft, whatever is loaded up. You're in New York City, you could just grab a taxi. Make sure you're prepared to, if you do ride with somebody, prepared to get yourself out of there if need be. And then the next thing was, and I've seen this on a few dates, but she was like suffering in silence. So at a certain point, she was really thirsty, and he had said
Oh,
at some
right.
point he didn't drink. I'm like, yeah, you don't drink alcohol, you drink beverages, period. And then at some point, no, she didn't drink. That's what it was. And then he went
Right.
and got himself a drink, and he's like, well, you don't drink.
He got himself
Didn't
two
even,
drinks.
yeah, two drinks. Didn't get her, like, I'm like, yeah, just 'cause she doesn't drink, she still wants water or a soda or something, and you're karaokeing, your throat is dry, and didn't even offer her anything. Now, she was like, I didn't say anything. I just sat there with my throat parched. To me, like, no, girl. You get up. There's two things you can do. Like, oh, you weren't gonna get me a drink. Like, I would love some water. Like if things are still going well, I'd just be like, oh, like I want some water, and then see if they immediately like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I didn't ask. Like, da da da. Because hey, whatever. We can give them the benefit of the doubt one time. But if you're like, oh, I want some water, and they're like, oh, the bar's over there. Okay, well, no. But then furthermore, if you're already like kind of over it, but you're still thirsty, go get yourself a drink. Don't just sit there suffering. Now you're on a bad date and you're physically uncomfortable. So I thought like that was like, I'm like, girl, why?
That part was completely asinine. It was almost like she was trying to prove a point that he like was a horrible date, but
Exactly.
like only she was the one that like ended up suffering.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like,
That's the thing. They don't care. He doesn't care.
yeah,
Even if he
exactly.
watched this video back, he'd be like, you were thirsty, you should have said something. He doesn't care that you proved this point of being thirsty. Like all you hurt was yourself in this scenario.
Well, you have to speak up in any event because people are not mind readers and they
No.
cannot read your mind. And if you wanted a glass of water, you just have to speak up. Like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of, I think a lot of people in general, but like women especially, it's like
Hmm.
we want to be treated the way that we would have been, the way that we would have treated them.
Hmm.
It's like,
Hmm.
well, if you're projecting what you would have done onto everyone else, you're never going to be satisfied because no one is you. No one is ever going to
Exactly.
do everything like you. So you have
Exactly.
to accept that like people are going to do things how they're going to do things. And if you want to be treated a certain type of way or you want a darn glass of water, then you're going to have to speak up because that person is not you and they're never going to treat you like you would treat you because they're not you. So
No, exactly.
anyway.
And it's like in a like simple little things. I mean, like obviously this is a first date. He should be on like his chivalrous behavior and he wasn't for whatever reason. But there are many things as you're navigating early relationship days where simply speaking up about something once will totally change the game. And that person, if they're caring about you and wanting to continue building, they're never going to do it again. If you were like, oh, I'm thirsty. And then he's like, oh my gosh, my bad. Like, I was just thinking it's a bar. Like, I forget you can get non alcoholic things at bars. I don't know, whatever was going through his mind. And he goes and gets you some water. I bet anytime you ever go out anywhere else again, he's never going to assume that just because you don't drink alcohol, that you aren't, in fact, thirsty for a beverage.
I mean, the fact that he didn't offer her anything, like the date is over. Like,
Oh,
you
no,
know what I
I would
mean?
have.
Like,
Now, you already know I would have been gone. This happened to me one single time. Went to like this concert thing with this guy. We get in there and he had brought a drink for himself from home, like an energy drink or something. And like wherever we went, I guess you could bring it because usually they make you dump them. But anyways, he had it. We get in there and then it was hot. We were outside. And then I was like, oh yeah, like, do you want to like go get a drink at the bar or something? Because we were just like standing there. And then he's like, well, I brought this. And I'm like, I mean, that's not going to last you the whole time. But also like, I don't have anything, like thinking that to myself. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, I happened to know that my sister was at the same event with her boyfriend at the time or whatever. And so I was like, oh, hey, mind you, my sister was like in high school, I think at this point, like she was there. Right. And then I was like, oh, where are you? And then she's like, oh, we're in line to get drinks. And so like, just, non-alcoholic drinks, like
Right. High
whatever.
school
But I was
drinks.
like, oh, because the lines were, of course, hella long, and the guy wasn't like offering to go get me something or like, oh, let's go stand in line so you can get something. So I was like, oh, okay. I was like, can you grab me a Diet Coke and like bring it over to me? And then she's like, oh yeah, sure. Brings me the Diet Coke, and then he's like, oh, like he was just like so floored that like someone brings me a drink, and then he was like, oh, like all flustered. And I was like, yeah, you didn't seem to be offering me anything, and I wasn't gonna go stand in that line. And so he was just like, oh, whatever. And the date progressively got worse, and I did end up making my exit early. And I left because it just was not going well. But I was not about to just stand there and be thirsty. I'm like, I'll get myself a drink one way or another.
It goes both ways too. It's like if it was a situation like that and maybe he's like with his friends or something like and I'm going to the bar, I'd be like, hey, do you want a drink? Like, do you want anything? Like I think it does go both ways. So it's like if
Mm-hmm.
you're not offering the person that you're with, regardless of whoever it is, a
Yeah.
drink when you're going to the bar and they don't have a drink, like you're just not a good friend.
Like, it
Like,
doesn't
and that's
matter
just
who it
not,
is. Yeah, when you're in a group and
yeah,
everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna go grab a drink. Does anybody else need a refill? Anybody want anything? Like,
yeah.
that's just like what people do. So when they don't even do that basic thing, like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he was in the right in this date situation. I'm just saying, like, don't suffer in silence because you can still get some water just because he didn't go get it for you.
Well, it just kind of proves that, like, even in like this silly little scenario, like, it just proves he's not considerate.
Yeah,
And if it's important for you to have a considerate man, then like, that's not your man, girl. I think she
exactly.
figured that out, but
Well, yes, just don't suffer in silence. That's the point. Like for
yeah,
me, this is like a bad date. Like I just want like bad date toolkit. Like these are the things that are they're happening. If the person doesn't offer you anything, that doesn't mean you don't get anything. It just means that that's a strike off the list that like this date probably won't be happening again. But you can
yeah,
still
right.
like go get something to drink or eat or whatever. Okay. And I just want to like the other thing is you cannot be beholden to people. If you even if you ride with them, you can still leave. So you need to make sure that you have a plan for how you're going to transport yourself back out of this state if things aren't going well, especially when you ride with somebody who you don't know. So like I said, whether that's having your rideshare app ready or if you're like close to home and get a taxi, call your friend. I don't care. You don't have to stay on a date simply because you rode with them. And you need to empower yourself. You don't need a fake phone call. You don't need any of those things. You can simply say like, I am ready to go home and leave. Or if that's too awkward for you, then you can just say like, oh, I'm not feeling too good. I think I'm going to call it a night. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them to keep staying there. Like go home and like cut your losses.
I completely agree. And this reminds me of a very brief story of when I stormed out on this man because he said something rude or off put or whatever. Like, and I was just, it was like the second or third time he had said something really like off putting. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, that's it. I'm out of here. And so I stormed off. And then, like, this happened recently. Well, okay, so that date happened like probably like 10 years ago.
Okay.
But then recently, I saw him on that Are We Dating the Same Guy thing.
No.
And the tea was going off about him. Like, I guess he was like with this girl, but then he was going to like this swingers club or something. It was absolutely outrageous. Like, the tea was piping hot. I was just like, there was like 200 comments. I was
Holy
like, oh my
moly.
God. I was like, I stormed out on the right guy. Anyway, so
You
that's my
sure
story.
did, but I love that. Like how it comes back and you're like, I was right.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Ooh,
Being
he
right
was
is
gross.
just so good. Okay, well, do we have any other tips for our a bad date toolkit?
No, I just think plan on paying your way, plan on Ubering home if it goes. You just think of the worst possible scenario and be
Yeah,
prepared for whatever that is. So
prepared.
don't leave home with your phone on 3% or
Oh
whatever.
God, no.
So yeah, hopefully no one out there is going through any bad dates, but also write in if you do have a bad date scenario that you want to talk
Because
to us
we're
about.
here to dissect it all. All right, well, we've got the first episode of the Ask Alexis and Brook show in the can, so to speak, the virtual can.
Not the can.
Well, no, like like they used to say like it's in like because it was film, and then when you're done, they would put it in
Oh,
the
then you put it in
film can, not like the toilet can. No,
Okay, we're
I would never do
aging
that.
ourselves. We are very young. We don't know about film.
I mean, that's why you barely knew it, and then I was like trying to explain it by using this, and I don't even know if that's what it looks like. All right, don't forget to comment, subscribe, and like this video, and then of course, if you need advice, just ask us.
Send it.
Bye.
Bye.